I am Jackson Harloff, and I'm the ASB president at Yamhill Carlton High School. Today we would like to welcome New York Times columnist, multiple Pulitzer Prize winner, and a successful author, and most importantly, Yamhill Carlton graduate, class of 1977, Kristof, back to YC.
Good to be back.
He is our first subject in our I Am YC campaign. So first of all, Mr. Kristof, we would like to thank you very much for coming and sharing with us some of your experiences as a student at YC. And before we begin, we would like to introduce who we have here today.
I am Katie Sowers, and I am the chair of the IMYC committee, and I am a senior.
I was supposed to go first. I'm Greg Newman, and I'm the high school principal here at YC.
I am Lee Sowers, and I am the assistant activities director here.
I am Chris Shirkey, and I am the senior class vice president.
And once again, I'm Jackson Harloff, the ASB president. So if you're ready to begin, I will start with our first question.
Great.
Our first question is, what were people's opinions of YCHS when you attended the school?
I think it probably like now, it varied a lot with the kid. I think there was a certain amount of pride vis-a-vis other schools, often about sports or other activities, and just general kind of community pride. Some of it pitted Yamhill against Carlton at times, but I think people were proud of sports successes, in general proud of the school. Also at times inevitably frustrated by this or that, and they wanted some program that we didn't have, whatever it may be. But I think people in general felt pretty good about it.
Nice, thank you. And Katie's going to ask our next question.
So our second question is, would you say YCHS helped you become as successful as you are, and how did YC influence you?
I think YC helped in a lot of ways, and partly it has to do with with pond size and big fishes and small ponds and big ponds, this kind of thing. The fact that I went to a small school meant that the cross-country coach at the time was desperate for runners just to fill the team, and he was also teaching social studies for freshmen, and so he was basically trying to drag any freshman in his class out to the cross-country team, and so he did that to me, and running has been an important part of my life ever since. And if I had gone to a big, huge school, then that probably wouldn't have happened. Likewise, I did FFA, and I learned so much from FFA. It was a hugely important part of my life. I was student body president at a larger school. It wouldn't have been possible to do multiple activities. YC was small enough that it was. So, and I think there was also, that came with all of that, a certain self-confidence. There was a sense of community. We knew each other, and there were times when that was tough, when you sort of screwed up or did something really embarrassing that everybody in the school would know the next day. But it also did provide something of a cocoon, something of a supportive environment, and I think probably kept us on better behavior than if it had been anonymous and huge, as many big schools are.
Thank you. Luke will be asking our next question.
What classes did you take to help you prepare for your future?
I guess, Luke, I'd say that one of the most important things that I did here, it was learning journalism, and I took indeed the journalism class here. I'm still in touch with the journalism teacher I had, Sue Smith, who is now retired in Bend. But it was also, putting out the school newspaper and trying to cover issues and kind of learning how to do that. It was a huge learning experience. And I found that, social studies classes the teachers were, they were very willing to kind of help us with our own ideas, and because everybody knew each other and I'd had them in multiple classes, they were maybe willing to be more flexible than than maybe was true in another place. So senior year, I think it was senior year, maybe in junior year, I decided I wanted to write a novel. And so one of my teachers said, okay, I'll do an independent study with you and you write your novel. And I used that time and I wrote the world's worst novel. And you know, nobody ever published it, of course. I think there's a copy in the school library, but it was an awful novel. But it was the kind of experience that I don't think I could have had at a larger, more anonymous school. And I learned a lot by writing a bad novel.
Thank you very much. And Chris will be asking our next question.
Our next question is, what classes do you wish YC would have offered to help you in your future?
I guess I have two answers for that. I think that there's no doubt that if YC's strength was its small size and its sense of community, its weakness when I got to Harvard was also its small size and in a sense the lack of offerings. Because I was interested more in social science and the humanities, it didn't really matter so much because I could read novels on my own, I could read philosophy on my own, I could read history on my own. If my strength had been math, I think it might have been harder because we didn't offer calculus, for example, at that time at YC, and that would have been a real impediment. Likewise, there were fewer languages, for example, at YC, given that it's a smaller school. The French teacher was, when I was in school, basically, he spoke excellent Spanish, but there was a demand for French, and so he agreed to teach French and sort of stayed 1 week ahead of the class. And it was a very brave thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was, again, it was a strength of the school that the teacher had the flexibility to do that. On the other hand, his French wasn't really as good as French teachers should have been. So it cut both ways. It seemed to me that I, on balance, was, my preparation worked fine for Harvard. I do think, and there were some other kids that I knew who did astoundingly well on SATs and in college admissions. I think because they were coming from parents who were pushing them, who were dragging them off to the library all the time, who were supporting them. I think that the problem tended to be those families where kids weren't getting pushed, and sometimes they were able to fall through the cracks and not graduate, for example. And in retrospect, I think that maybe one of the weaknesses was that too often we let kids fail without trying hard enough to build in safety nets to keep them in school.
Thank you. Jackson will be asking our last question.
Going along kind of with the last question, did you have any doubts about your future because you went to such a small school?
No, I didn't. Maybe because I did go to a small school. I was cocky and full of myself and sure I could hold my own against those stuck-up East Coast kids. In fact, some of that was perhaps arrogance. The truth is that I was less prepared in math, for example, than some other kids, but it made up for it with genuinely a great deal of self-confidence, a wide variety of skills. So I didn't do calculus, which most big East Coast schools would teach. I did do arc welding, which you're not going to find at a lot of prep schools. And I'm glad I had the chance to take welding, the shop classes here. There were trade-offs, but I thought I got a great deal here.
Yeah. Nice. Mr. Newman will ask our final question.
And so I'm happy to say we have arc welding and calculus now, so.
Great, I'm glad about so now there's, so now folks are
Right.
all set to
Absolutely.
charge ahead.
Right, so now my last question for you is how can a student from Yamhill Carlton really get involved in the work of social justice and make an impact in the world that we live in?
You know, I think that the impediment is not lack of opportunities. I think the impediment is the tendency just to psych ourselves out and think, you know, what can I do? I'm a sophomore. And in fact, I think that both the needs are immense out there and the opportunities are enormous. And that I would encourage students not just to try to do things on their own. Just, you know, it's so much more fun if a group of, 2 or 3 or 4 of you decide to do something. But go out and see if you can tutor at the prison maybe, or tutor non-English speakers in a preschool program, or, sex trafficking is one of my passions, and I am sure there are kids who are encountering that in not too distant an area. There's so many areas, and so I would just encourage you a group of you to pick that issue that you care about, that you're passionate about, study it, talk to some people, and then go volunteer your services. And I bet that people will just be thrilled to have your input, and that you may start off thinking, oh, I'm busy, this is going to be such a big sacrifice, and then invariably what we always find is that, our efforts to help other people have this sort of somewhat mixed record of success. They have this almost perfect record of helping ourselves and being satisfying.
All right, thank you. And once again, we would like to sincerely thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming and joining the students at your alma mater. So we would now like to present you with a YCHS hoodie that we hope you wear proudly on those cold New York
Once a tiger, always a
That's
tiger.
right.
Wow. Oh, this is great. Okay.
I hope it might be a little big, but it'll be, you
Okay.
can grow into it.
Yeah, exactly.
You got it?
If I can figure out where the...
There we go.
There you go.
Well, almost. There it is.
There we go. Okay. Oh.
And
These are new.
we will close with the YC phrase that pays.
I'm Nicholas Kristof, and I am YC.